Christmas Eve has always been my favorite day of the year. The lights, the smell of cinnamon, the sound of laughter. It used to mean something in our family. When my daughter Emma got married 3 years ago, I imagined her building those same memories in her own home. So that morning, I decided to surprise her. I baked her favorite pecan pie, wrapped a few gifts, and drove the 2 hours to her place. I didn't call first. I just wanted to see her face when she opened the door. The whole drive, I kept picturing her and her husband, Daniel, sitting by their fireplace, maybe a tree glowing behind them, soft music playing. I even caught myself smiling at the thought. I hadn't seen her in a few months. She'd been distant lately, always saying she was busy or tired. I told myself that was just life. People get busy. When I pulled up, the house was lit up from the inside, laughter spilling out through the windows. I could hear voices, clinking glasses, Christmas songs playing in the background. For a moment, I felt relief. It sounded like a happy home. I carried the pie up the front steps and knocked. No one answered. I waited, knocked again, and finally the door opened a crack. Daniel's mother, a woman I barely knew, stood there holding a wine glass. Her smile froze when she saw me. "Oh, hello," she said, her tone sharp, like I'd interrupted something. "Hi," I said, trying to sound cheerful. "I thought I'd stop by to see Emma." I brought her favorite pie. She didn't open the door any wider. I could see people behind her, laughing, plates full of food. The warmth of the room hit me like a wall. "Oh, well, she's around somewhere," she muttered, glancing back. "It's kind of a family thing tonight." "I am family," I said quietly. She didn't answer that, just looked at me like she wished I'd go away. "Let me check," she said finally, and shut the door. I stood there, holding that pie, the cold biting through my coat. I could still hear the laughter inside. No one came back for what felt like 5 minutes. Then Daniel appeared, half drunk, grinning. "Hey, Mrs. W," he said too loudly. "Didn't know you were coming." "Is Emma home?" He scratched his head. Yeah. She's, probably in the back or something. Come in, I guess." He opened the door just enough for me to step inside, but I instantly felt out of place. The house smelled like roast beef and wine. Everyone was dressed up, glasses raised, laughter echoing. Not a single person looked up to say hello. I scanned the room for my daughter, but she wasn't there. I set the pie down on the counter and looked toward the hallway, my chest tightening. Something didn't feel right. I could feel it, that quiet mother's instinct that whispers something's wrong. And then I heard it, faint from outside, a small broken sound, a cry. At first I thought I was imagining it. That small, trembling sound outside. The kind of sound you only notice when the rest of the world goes quiet inside your head. But then I heard it again. Soft, like someone trying not to be heard. I turned toward the window. Snow was falling thick now, covering the porch and the front yard in white. Through the glass, I could barely make out a figure, small, hunched, sitting near the steps. I didn't even say a word to anyone. I just walked straight to the door and opened it. The cold air hit me like a slap. And there she was, my daughter, my Emma. She was sitting on the wooden steps, arms wrapped around her knees, her thin sweater soaked through. Her lips were pale, her hair sticking to her face, and her shoulders were shaking. She looked up at me like she wasn't sure if I was real. "Mom?" she whispered, her voice cracked. I dropped to my knees beside her. "Emma, my God, what are you doing out here?" "It's freezing." Her hands were like ice when I touched them. She tried to pull away, embarrassed, maybe ashamed. I just needed some air," she said quickly. eyes darting toward the window where shadows moved behind the curtains. I looked back inside. Daniel was laughing, clinking a glass with his father. Everyone looked so warm, so full, like my daughter didn't even exist. "Air?" I said softly. "You've been out here a while." She swallowed hard and gave me that forced smile she used to give when she didn't want me to worry. "It's fine, Mom. Just a bit of tension earlier. I didn't want to ruin Christmas dinner." "Tension?" I repeated, my heart pounding. "Emma, what kind of tension leaves you sitting out in the snow while they laugh in there?" Her eyes filled instantly. "Please don't make a scene," she whispered. "They'll just say I'm being dramatic again." Dramatic again. Those words hit me like a punch. I'd heard Daniel use that tone before. The soft, dismissive kind that makes you doubt your own feelings. Back then, I thought maybe I was just being protective. Maybe I'd misjudged him. But now, seeing her like this... "Emma," I said, trying to steady my voice, "tell me what happened." She shook her head. "It doesn't matter. I just wanted to come out here till everyone calmed down. Calmed down." Inside, the sound of laughter roared again. Daniel's voice, loud and careless. Someone turned up the music. "Let It Snow," of all things. I looked at the window, at that room full of comfort and light, and then back at my daughter, shivering in the dark. That was the moment something inside me shifted. A quiet, heavy kind of anger, not wild or loud, but the kind that comes from seeing someone you love being slowly erased in plain sight. I stood up, took off my coat, and wrapped it around her shoulders. "You're coming with me," I said. She froze. "No, Mom, I can't." "You can," I said, my voice firmer this time. "And you will. You're not spending another second out here while they pretend you don't exist." She looked at me then, really looked, and I saw it in her eyes, that flicker of relief that comes right before someone starts to believe they can breathe again. But before she could move, the front door opened behind us. Daniel's voice cut through the cold. "What's going on out here?" Daniel's voice was too casual for the situation, the kind of voice people use when they want to sound in control. He leaned against the doorframe, holding a beer, still half smiling like this was some kind of joke. "There you are," he said, looking at Emma first. "Everyone's been wondering where you ran off to. You're making things awkward." "Awkward?" I said, before she could answer. "She's freezing out here, Daniel." He glanced at me, that fake charm flickering for a second. "Oh, hi, Mrs. W. Didn't expect you tonight." "I can see that," I said, stepping a little closer to my daughter. "Why is she out here while everyone else is inside?" He took a sip of his beer and sighed. "We had a small argument, that's all. You know how she gets. Needed some space, I guess." "She's shaking," I snapped. "That's not needing space. That's being left out." He rolled his eyes. "Look, we don't need to do this right now. It's Christmas. Let's just go back inside." But Emma didn't move. She just kept staring at the snow, her voice barely audible. "I told you, Daniel, I just wanted a minute." "Yeah, and it's been 30, he said sharply. "Everyone's asking where you went." My mom's embarrassed. That word, embarrassed, made me want to slap him, as if Emma's cold hands and tear-streaked face were an inconvenience to their holiday. I stood up fully, between them now. "You should be embarrassed," I said quietly. "Not her." He looked at me like I'd crossed some invisible line. "With all due respect, ma'am," he started, his tone hardening. "This is between me and my wife." "Your wife," I said, my voice trembling, "is outside in the freezing cold while your family drinks wine by the fire. Don't talk to me about respect." Behind him, I could see his mother watching from the doorway, frowning. She didn't step out, just stood there, arms crossed, judgment written all over her face. Emma finally stood up, her voice shaking. "Please, both of you, stop." "I don't want to fight." I turned to her, trying to soften. "Sweetheart, I just want to understand what's going on." She hesitated, eyes darting between us. Then she whispered, "He took my phone, Mom." Daniel's expression froze. "Oh, come on." "She wouldn't stop crying," he said quickly, his voice raised now. "She gets like this sometimes." I was trying to calm her down. "By taking her phone?" I asked. "By leaving her out here like a dog?" "Mom," Emma said, almost pleading now, "please don't." But I couldn't stop. The more I looked at her, the more I realized this wasn't just one bad night. This was a pattern. The way her shoulders curled inward, the way she avoided his eyes. I'd seen that kind of fear before. I stepped closer to Daniel. "Give her the phone." He let out a cold laugh. "You're really coming into my house and—" "It's not your house," I interrupted, my voice low but steady. "It's theirs. Hers too. And right now, she looks like she doesn't even belong in it." For a moment, no one spoke. Snow kept falling between us, soft and relentless. Then, finally, he reached into his pocket, pulled out the phone, and tossed it onto the porch steps like it was nothing. "There," he said. "Happy?" Emma flinched at the gesture, but quickly picked it up. Her fingers were trembling too much to even unlock it. I took her hand. "You're coming home with me tonight." Daniel's jaw tightened. "She's not going anywhere." I looked at him dead in the eye. "Then call the police," I said. "Tell them her mother came to take her somewhere safe." That shut him up. He stood there, chest heaving, and for the first time, I saw what I hadn't wanted to see before. The small, ugly truth behind his charm. Emma didn't say a word. She just clung to me like she used to when she was little. And as I led her off that porch through the falling snow, I heard the laughter inside start up again, muffled, distant, like we were already ghosts in their world. We didn't talk much on the drive. The heater in my car took forever to warm up, and the silence between us felt heavier than the cold air outside. Emma sat in the passenger seat, staring out the window, clutching her phone like it was the only thing keeping her together. Every few minutes, she wiped her face with her sleeve, pretending it was just the cold making her eyes water. I wanted to ask questions, 1,000 of them, but I knew if I pushed too hard, she'd shut down completely. So I just drove. When we finally pulled into my driveway, the house looked small but warm, with the faint glow of the Christmas lights I'd strung up earlier in the week. Normally, that sight would have made me feel peaceful. Tonight it just looked like a lie, a picture of happiness that didn't exist anymore. Inside, she sat quietly on the couch while I made her tea. She kept rubbing her hands together, trying to get the feeling back in them. I could see bruises along her wrist, small, faded ones, but there. My stomach turned. I sat down across from her, slid the cup toward her, and said softly, "You don't have to tell me everything right now. But please, baby, tell me something." She didn't answer right away, just stared at the tea, her reflection shaking in the surface. Then, in a voice so small I could barely hear it, she said, "He said I ruin everything." I froze. "Who? Daniel?" She nodded. "He said I embarrass him in front of his family, that I make everyone uncomfortable. He told me to go outside until I could fix my attitude." She gave a little laugh, not out of humor but disbelief, like I was a child being punished. I felt tears sting my own eyes, but I held them back. "Emma, has he done that before?" She hesitated. "Not like that. Usually, it's just words. He gets angry and I I just try to calm him down. Words can be just as cruel, I said. She looked up at me then, and that's when I saw it. The thing she hadn't been saying all night. There was something in her eyes, something broken but still fighting. Mom, she whispered, he's not like this all the time. He can be sweet. He hates when I make him look bad. He says I twist things, that I make him seem like the bad guy when really I'm the problem. She looked at me like she wanted me to agree, like she needed permission to keep believing him. Emma, I said carefully, you're not the problem. Her face crumpled, and the tears came fast. She covered her mouth with her hands, sobbing into them. I moved beside her, held her like I used to when she'd fall off her bike or get her heart broken at 16. But this wasn't something I could fix with a hug and kind words. She whispered through the tears, I just wanted tonight to be nice. I made dinner, decorated the house, bought gifts for everyone. His mother said the roast was too dry. Daniel laughed and said, Emma tries, but cooking isn't her strength. They all laughed, Mom, like I wasn't even there. My throat burned. And you went outside after that? He told me I was embarrassing him. Said I was sulking. She shook her head. I just needed a minute to breathe, but he locked the door behind me. I didn't realize it until I tried to come back in. For a moment, I couldn't breathe either. My whole body went cold. He locked you out? She nodded, wiping her face again. He said I was being dramatic. He said if I wanted to act cold, I could feel what cold really was. Her eyes met mine, and I swear I'll never forget that look. The mix of shame and heartbreak and quiet pleading. Like she wanted me to tell her she wasn't crazy. I reached over, took her hand, and said, Emma, listen to me. That's not love. That's cruelty. She didn't respond, just looked at me with those broken eyes, whispering, I don't know who I am anymore, Mom. And right then, I knew this wasn't just about Christmas. This was about years of her shrinking herself to make someone else comfortable. That night, as she fell asleep on my couch, wrapped in a blanket, I sat beside her and made a silent promise. I wasn't going to let her go back there, no matter what it cost me. Emma slept most of the next day. I didn't wake her. She looked so small, curled up on that couch with the blanket pulled to her chin, her hair a mess, and her face blotchy from crying. Every so often she'd twitch or mumble something, and I'd sit there on the armchair pretending to read, but really just watching her breathe. When she finally woke up, the sun was already going down. The sky outside was the color of bruised lavender, the street quiet except for the wind pushing snow against the windows. She sat up slowly, rubbing her eyes. Morning, I said softly. Or evening, I guess. She gave me a tired smile. I'm sorry I slept so long. You needed it. I poured her some coffee. How are you feeling? She took the cup, stared at it for a long time before whispering, empty. I sat across from her again, trying to give her space but also let her know I was there. You don't have to hold it in anymore, Em. Whatever's been going on, you can tell me. I'm not going to judge you. She was quiet for a while, then finally said, I don't even know when it started, Mom. It wasn't like this in the beginning. He was kind, funny, protective. He made me feel safe. But then, little things started to change. I nodded, keeping my voice calm. Like what? He'd get irritated if I talked too much at dinners. Said I embarrassed him in front of people, or if I disagreed with him, he'd go quiet for days. He used to say it was to teach me a lesson. She gave a hollow laugh. He said marriage was about compromise, but the compromise was always me. I could feel anger building inside me, but I stayed still. She needed to say it out loud. She kept going, voice trembling now. He started checking my phone. Said he didn't trust my friends. One by one, they stopped calling because I could never meet up. Then he said I should quit my job, that he made enough for both of us. Said he wanted to take care of me. I thought it was love, Mom. I really did. Her eyes glistened. But then I realized he just wanted control. Over everything. Who I talked to, what I wore, when I could leave the house. And every time I tried to speak up, he'd twist it until it was my fault. I reached across the table, took her hand. Has he ever hit you? She looked down. Not really. Not punches. He's shoved me before. Once he grabbed my arm so hard it left a bruise. But mostly it's words. The way he looks at me when he's angry. You'd think that doesn't hurt as much, but it does. She swallowed hard. I tried to tell his mother once. She said I should be patient, that Daniel just had a temper like his father. She told me good wives know when to stay quiet. That did it. I couldn't hold back anymore. She said what? Emma's voice cracked. I just stopped fighting after that. I thought maybe I was the problem. Maybe if I did everything right, cooked better, smiled more, stayed out of the way, he'd love me again. I squeezed her hand. You don't fix someone like that by being smaller, sweetheart. You'll just disappear. Tears streamed down her face, and I moved beside her, wrapping her in my arms. She sobbed into my shoulder, saying over and over, I didn't want you to know. I didn't want you to think I'd failed. I held her tighter. You didn't fail, Emma. You survived. There's a difference. For a long time, we just sat there like that, a mother and daughter, holding on to each other in the quiet after years of pain. When she finally pulled back, she looked me in the eye and said something that made my heart twist. I can't go back there, Mom, but I don't know how to leave him. I took a deep breath and said, You don't have to. We'll figure it out together. And I meant it. That night, while she was in the shower, I sat at the kitchen table with her phone and started scrolling through the messages he'd sent her. The things he wrote, the threats, the apologies, the guilt, they made my stomach turn. By the time I was done reading, I knew what I had to do, because no one was ever going to lock my daughter out in the cold again. I didn't sleep that night. I just sat there in the kitchen with Emma's phone on the table, reading and rereading the messages, my coffee gone cold hours ago. Each text was like a small bruise, one after another. You make me crazy. You should be grateful I put up with you. If you leave, don't expect anyone else to want you. And then, buried among them, one from the night before Christmas Eve. If you ruin tonight for me, you'll regret it. That was it, the line I couldn't unsee. I looked at the clock, 4:17 a.m., and felt something in me snap, quietly, cleanly, like a string that had been stretched too tight for too long. When Emma came into the kitchen around sunrise, she looked surprised to find me awake. Her eyes were swollen, her voice still small. You haven't slept, have you? No, I said, pushing her a mug of tea. And I've made a decision. She frowned, wary. About what? About him. Her face paled. Mom, please don't. Emma, I said softly. He's not going to stop. Not because you hope he will, and not because you cry or beg or forgive him. He will keep taking pieces of you until there's nothing left. She shook her head, tears filling her eyes again. I can't just leave. He'll come after me. He'll show up here. Then I'll be ready, I said. You think I'd ever let that man hurt you again? Mom, you don't understand. I do, I said quietly, leaning closer. Because I've been where you are. That stopped her. She stared at me, eyes wide. What? I took a deep breath. Your father wasn't always kind to me either, Emma. You were little. You don't remember most of it. But I stayed. I told myself I was keeping the peace. I told myself I was strong enough to handle it. And one day, I woke up and realized I didn't even recognize my own voice anymore. She was silent, tears spilling freely now. I swore to myself if I ever saw you go through anything like that, I'd step in, no matter what. I reached for her hand again. You don't have to fight this alone. We spent the rest of that morning making a plan. She'd stay with me for a while. I'd help her contact a lawyer, someone I trusted from years back. We'd find her a counselor, start the process of documenting everything. It wasn't about revenge, it was about survival. But deep down, I also knew I wanted him to feel even a fraction of the fear and emptiness he'd made her live with. When she went to take a nap that afternoon, I went into the garage and found a box I hadn't opened in years, the one with all her old belongings. Photos, letters, her high school awards, things she'd forgotten. I gathered them up and drove to her house, his house, while she slept. The driveway was empty. They were probably still at his parents'. The snow had covered everything, soft and clean, like nothing had happened there. I unlocked the front door with the spare key she'd given me once and never took back. Inside it smelled like pine and expensive perfume. The Christmas tree still twinkled, gifts piled neatly underneath. The picture of them, smiling, perfect, hung above the mantel. I took it down. Then, one by one, I started packing her things. Every photo that had her face in it, every reminder that she had once belonged there. I left only his stuff, his clothes, his family's smiling faces. When I was done, I placed a note on the kitchen table. She's safe. Don't come looking for her. M. And before I left, I unplugged the Christmas lights. When I got home, Emma was still asleep. Her breathing was steady, peaceful, maybe for the first time in months. I sat by the window, watching the snow start again, and whispered to myself, if he ever touches her again, I'll make sure he regrets it. I wasn't bluffing. A mother's breaking point isn't loud. It's quiet and irreversible.